Chapter 8, Section 3. A couple key terms I want to go over. First one is a federalist. That is somebody that supported the ratification of the Constitution, or somebody that supported the new Constitution. Anti-federalists were people that opposed the new Constitution or opposed ratification. Ratification means to formally approve the Constitution. Now, the key issues that divide Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Federalists argued the value of federalism and a strong union. Federalism is a system of government where power is shared between federal government and state government. Now remember, under the Articles of Confederation, the power was at the states. It was not shared. The state held the power. This new government, under federalism, the state and the federal government share powers. The Anti-Federalists feared a strong executive and legislative branch. They did not want to have another king and didn't want to get in the same situation they did with the King of England and the tyranny and the tyrant. They felt the Senate would become a ruling class, and they feared another king. And they were worried about the right to tax at the federal level. Because remember, one of the main reasons for the American Revolution was taxation without representation. And they were afraid it took too much power from the states, because the Articles of Confederation gave all the power to the states. Under the Constitution, the power would be shared, but the federal government would trump or supersede any state power. So the arguments the Federalists and Anti-Federalists used to convince people to support their Constitution. Federalists try to convince people that the division of government would prevent tyranny. Because we had an executive branch, legislative and judicial branch, and checks and balances, people should trust their leaders. The Anti-Federalists, on the other hand, said the absence of individual protections would lead to the abuse of tyranny, meaning that under this system, a king could deform or people could abuse their power. So the Battle of Ratification, the rights of the people. There was no Bill of Rights. The original Constitution only consisted of an preamble and 7 articles. There was no individual rights. And how did the lack of Bill of Rights endanger the Constitution? Several states refused to ratify the Constitution unless a Bill of Rights was added. Anti-Federalists wanted guarantees that a Bill of Rights would be added, or they wanted a Bill of Rights in the Constitution. So the battle for ratification. Federalists promoted their views in the Federalist Papers. John J. Alexander Hamilton and James Madison wrote a series of essays that they put in the New York newspapers, and these essays were called the Federalist Papers, to help convince people to support ratification of the Constitution. The Constitution only needed 9 of 13 states to ratify the Constitution. And if you look, all 13 states are going to ratify it. But it wasn't until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, New Hampshire. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, New Hampshire, that the Constitution was ratified. Now, they felt that they needed Virginia and New York. Even though the Constitution took place or was enacted, Virginia was a very large southern state. And without New York, it would basically cut it in half. We had a north and a south. So they really worked hard to get Virginia and New York. You notice everybody did pass it, but it looked like Rhode Island. Because remember, Rhode Island, they didn't go to the Constitutional Convention. Rhode Island didn't want to change. It barely passed there. It only passed by 2 votes. And in New York, it only passed by 3 votes. And you can see some of these states were unanimous, but a lot of the states was very close. And like I said, why was ratification of the Constitution of Virginia and New York so important? Without Virginia, the nation would lose its large states. And without New York, the country could be split geographically or in half, like a north and south. They needed 9 states to ratify the Constitution, 3/4 to ratify, as it says in the Constitution. Now, call for the Bill of Rights. This is from your book. It said Madison, who took office in the first Continental Congress in the winter of 1789, took up the cause of the Bill of Rights. Madison submitted 10 amendments or additions to a document to the Constitution. So an amendment is a change. So the first thing Congress is going to do after they create their Constitution is they make changes to it. So imagine you just made a new government, and the first thing you do is add 10 things to this new government. Those 10 things or 10 amendments were called the Bill of Rights. And that was the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, passed right after it was ratified. To amend the Constitution, there's 2 things you have to understand: propose and ratify. In order to propose something, you need 2/3 vote. In order to ratify, you need 3/4. And there's multiple ways you can do this, but the key is propose 2/3 and ratify 3/4. And like I said, you can read this section in your book. It talks about it, but this is the key: propose, ratify. Propose 2/3, ratify 3/4. How does the Bill of Rights ensure American freedoms? The Bill of Rights guaranteed basic individual freedoms, including freedom of religion. The first 9 amendments guaranteed basic individual freedoms that were lacking in the Constitution. The Bill of Rights creates an invisible but powerful shield that protects people from government abuse. All right, that is the end of the presentation.